And the first game that we saw on Friday was the Sacramento Kings at the Golden State Warriors on the road in San Francisco. Kings facing elimination down 3-2. They go in and they win 118-99. That is the biggest win in this series, and it is the biggest home loss with a chance to clinch a playoff series in Warriors franchise history. Now, let me just start right there. For everybody that was saying the Kings' lack of experience was going to come to bite them, they just went on the road to the defending champions building and handed them their biggest closeout loss in franchise history. So I think right away we can get rid of that whole experience excuse, because what have we seen so far in this series? The Kings stepped up to the plate in game 1. They stepped up to the plate in game 2. Game 3, they lost convincingly. They never really had a chance to step up. Game 4, they brought themselves back. They gave themselves a real chance. And Harrison Barnes ended up with the ball in his hands for the final shot. Now, I wouldn't want Harrison Barnes shooting the ball in that situation, but I understand it was the right basketball play to get him the ball. Game 5, the Warriors go on the road and they win. Now, they were 2-22 on the road against teams that were 500 or better. And one of those wins was against the Kings at the end of the season when their starters didn't play, when Monk didn't play, Fox didn't play, Sabonis didn't play. So really only one win all season against teams that were, again, 500 or better. So that was very impressive for them. It shouldn't be impressive. This is what you should expect from the best dynasty ever, aside from the Bulls, and from the most dominant team in the last decade, the defending champions. It shouldn't be impressive to go beat a team on the road that hasn't won a playoff game, hasn't been to a playoff game in 16 years, but that's the point we're at with these Warriors. But they then lose on their home court, and as terrible as they were on the road, they were excellent on their home court. So huge win for the Kings. De'Aaron Fox had 26 points and 11 assists. He got off to a very slow start. He only had 4 points and 4 turnovers in the first quarter in a couple of minutes, but he was huge down the stretch. He was also playing excellent defense on Steph Curry, not because he was chasing him around the perimeter. He was, but that's not why. It's because of the discipline that he showed, not to foul, not to jump on the closeouts. Just really great stuff from Fox. Malik Monk also had 28 points and 7 rebounds off the bench. And guys, Malik Monk is everything that Jordan Poole should be. If you're the Warriors, you paid Jordan Poole $130 million last year, and now you're playing him fewer minutes per game than you played him in the last playoffs. I mean, watching Jordan Poole is it's like a human trying to play Twister on a basketball court. He's totally out of control. I never have any faith that he's going to make any of his shots anymore. And honestly, the Kings are starting to not honor his presence. You've seen him going under on screens, or you've seen them run him off the three-point line, but they're not having the big man step up. They're just leaving him open for the mid-range. They're letting him drive to the rim because they know that he's going to make mistakes, and they are capitalizing on them now. Jordan Poole can absolutely get hot and go for 30 points in a game one of these games. But if he's shooting you in the foot for 3 or 4 of the other games, that's a really big problem. And now you're going into game 7, and you thought you cracked the code by inserting Jordan Poole into the starting lineup, but he is demonstrably making this team worse. And Draymond Green, I know he didn't score a lot of points in the last game, and he had some foul trouble, but he was awesome in game 5, And you've got to feel like with his experience, you want him back in the starting lineup. So I would not be surprised at all if the Warriors opt to add Draymond back into the starting lineup for game 7, especially going on the road. You're going to need your emotional leader and what is going to be a raucous Kings home crowd. So that's going to be something that we're going to have to pay attention to. But while the Warriors have coaching adjustments that they need to make, the Kings and Mike Brown, the first ever unanimous coach of the year, he outfoxed Steve Kerr in game 6. I mean, he completely changed his rotation. He was getting Sabonis to sit more. Now, Sabonis was in foul trouble, so he was also forced to sit more, but Mike Brown was slower to bring him back in. Davion Mitchell no longer mimics Steph Curry's minutes aside from the opening lineup. He wasn't coming in to face guard him. Instead, they had Terrence Davis come out there. Now, Davis did foul out of the game, but he played some really good defense, and he was also an added offensive threat. Now, Davion Mitchell has been knocking down some threes, but you still have to honor Davis more than you have to honor Mitchell. And that was stretching the Warriors' defense out. And then Trey Lyles is the small ball 5. Yeah, Kevon Looney was killing them on the glass again, but he was killing them when Sabonis was playing and when Alex Len was playing. So Mike Brown said, you know what? Looney's going to do what he does. Why don't we get another floor spacer out there? Why don't we get another creator, somebody who can score the basketball? Because you're not going to beat the Warriors with defense. The Warriors, yes, they had great defense throughout their dynastic years, but they always had that ability to take over and score 8 points in 40 seconds whenever they wanted. The Kings have been able to match them in that series, but then they lost game 5 because they didn't quite have that element. So Mike Brown, again, very intelligent decision, bringing more scorers out there. What else do we got here on the docket here? The Warriors' transition defense. Yes, that was another thing. Sorry. Wrote down a couple of notes that I wanted to talk about. The Warriors' transition defense after baskets was just terrible. I mean, De'Aaron Fox was legitimately going 1-on-4 down the court, and he was beating all 4 of the Warriors to the basket off of made hoops. If you're Steve Kerr, you've got to be ripping your hair out, because between turning the ball over and the fouls that the Kings drew a bunch of charges, and then that lack of transition defense, it's just basic coaching principles that you're taught when you go to middle school basketball camps. And the Warriors didn't execute on that, and it ultimately kind of prevented them from even having a chance to come back in that game. Game 6, Clay was trying for a little bit, but he wasn't super efficient. He made some shots, but I still wouldn't say he had his three-point shot. So that Game 6 Clay narrative, I'm not saying it's put to rest, because you can't deny what he's done, but it didn't really play a difference here. And now let's look ahead at the final game, Game 7. Look, we're going to the Kings' home floor. The Warriors have been terrible on the road all season. The Kings have been better than the Warriors in this series. Their best player is injured, and yet it's tied 3-3. The Warriors thought they had the advantage because they went on the road. Well, guess what? The Kings go and win on the road with their backs against the wall. They get the largest win of the series. They've scored more points than the Warriors have scored in this series. I think they've answered more challenges than the Warriors have. And I think Mike Brown has coached a better series than Steve Kerr has. So the Kings have been better in every way, yet they're still underdogs on their home court. Well, I'll tell you what. I'm taking the Kings plus 1.5, and I'm taking the Kings money line, because we are going to light that beam. Not we. I'm not a Kings fan, but the Kings are going to light the beam. The Kings are going to move on to the next round of the playoffs, and they will face the Los Angeles Lakers.